Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're at in this big, beautiful world we call Earth. My name is Cody, and I am the host of Behind the Premium. Have we got a great show lined up for you today, as well as a great panel to discuss today's gamification of healthcare wellness? A lot of buzzwords are circulating around gamification, not only in the healthcare industry, but across all industries, trying to attract more users, trying to attract more attention, as well as being able to monetize off of that attention, which seems to be the rage and it seems to be spilling over into the healthcare industry. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today is the power of gamification, the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you want to call about it. And so to joining me today is a great panel that we have set up. So let's go around and introduce them, and then we'll just get right into today's discussion. So we'll let the ladies go first, Mina, if you're okay with that. Joy Lynn.
Hi, I'm Joylyn Jepson, and I work with a manufacturing company in beautiful Heber City, Utah. And yeah, anyway, Rhonda.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. As always, we'll pass it on to Rhonda next.
Hi, my name's Rhonda. I work with Well Trio. I'm a nurse. I also live in Utah, although not quite as beautiful part as Heber.
You still live in a great part. Let's just put it that way. And last but not least, we got Mina.
Hello, all. My name is Mina Damian. I live in Florida now, and I've been in the insurance industry. I have, about 6 years under my belt, give or take. Who's counting?
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Well, my hat's off to you, Mina, because I just blindly reached out to you in a cold DM and connected with you and invited you onto the podcast because I'd come across something that you had mentioned on somebody else's post, and I thought, you know what, he would be a great one for our roundtable discussion. So I appreciate you joining us pretty blindly, so to say. And but it's a safe space. We like to, in an essence, for the girls' sake, let our hairs down and just have a very casual conversation. It's a safe space. Feel free to bring the spice, play the devil's advocate, whatever you want to do. I don't know why, but the viewers always seem to like that. We will stop it once the gloves do come off if it gets to that point, which it never has, thankfully. But yeah, we have some fun with it. And So to kind of jump in, my question for you guys is when it comes to gamification, uh, type of wellness programs, benefits, apps, things we use for benefits for employers, employees to better monitor their health, better monitor their activities, things like that. What are some of the good things? We'll start out with the good things. We'll start on a positive note here. What are some of the good things that you've seen come from these type of applications or services or products?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I think that on the positive side, when it works well, the two things are going to be obviously wellness. The second thing on an employer side is monetizing on it, saving money, which is going to be the end goal for the employer. But when you think about what kind of culture you want to have in your company and what kind of employees you want to have, and the gamification of it, so having fun while getting healthier and also saving money.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with Mina. Anytime you can implement some program to have the employees have fun with it and save the employer and the employee money, whether that's credits back to the premium or HSA, HRA contributions for the employee, ultimately saving money on the claims for the employer. It's a win-win.
And I've seen where, it can create a little hype, a little buzz, a little excitement around it. But as I mentioned to Cody, I'm actually anti-gamification. So he was talking to me about not bringing the gloves out.
Yeah, you feel free to bring it out. I mean, this is this is a topic that's very passionate to me. My background is actually in UI UX design, so a lot of behavioral science theory models, a lot of positive psychology type of things to get people to form new habits, take action, or even I hate to use this term, but manipulate the environment that they're in to be able to force certain outcomes that I want them to achieve, right? And so this is something that I could probably go toe to toe with you on, Joylyn, if you have a lot of negative sentiment around gamification.
Well, I think it's fine for the short term. I don't think it changes long-term behavior. And when I think about the things that I've been involved with, whether, it's, get 10,000 steps a day or, who can eat the most fruits and veggies this month, or my mind went blank with some of the others. It create, and I'm a very competitive person, so it creates, the annual, lose 20 pounds or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm a very competitive person. I like competition, but I think it creates, like the short term gain, especially if you're talking about wellness and healthcare, right? But not the long term. It doesn't change long term behavior. Was an interesting study done with preschoolers, and they identified preschoolers that like to draw.
Mhm.
And so they identified the preschoolers who like to draw. And then, unbeknownst to the preschoolers, they broke them up into 3 different groups. The first group they went to and said, hey, if you draw me a picture, I'll give you this beautiful certificate. And then to the next group, they asked them to draw them a picture, but they didn't tell them there was a certificate until after the picture was given. So they didn't draw the picture for the certificate. Then the third group was just draw me a picture and nothing was given. And they found that the kids who drew the picture to get the certificate stopped drawing for fun. It became about now getting the reward instead of they were drawing for fun because they enjoyed it. And so a lot of times with gamification, it's more than just making it fun. It's about the reward. And so then you lose the reason why you're trying to get them to do it. And they're now doing it for the reward. And it now becomes a transactional nature of, is that reward worth it to me?
Yeah.
Right. When I've already gotten so many certifications already, how many more can I get?
Exactly.
But I would say, so that's a great example, but I would say that when you start with that certification in this example, but then you tie in an intrinsic reward. And in the case of a wellness program, like I used to have to go out and do my blood work once a year to get a discount on my premium. At first 1-2 years, I was just doing it because I wanted the discount. But then it was like, oh, how did I do this year for my own health? Did my cholesterol go down? Did my, all the different markers, how did I do it? And I would compare it. And that's something the company did not care about. Did not matter at all to them. I would still get the premium reduction regardless. But eventually it became something that I was looking forward to.
But what made that transition for you? Was it the game or was it something else?
It started with the game of I just wanted a discount, and then it became, oh, this is actually tracking my health, and I saw that my I think my cholesterol or something was low, and I was like, let's see how I'm gonna do next year. What changes can I make to improve on that by the next year? And again, it was just intrinsic. It was for me. So I think it starts out with that outside reward. And then if you're able to tie in the health benefit when you start seeing it, you're able to track it and have your own data that's helpful to you, then it becomes something that you're just interested in on an ongoing basis. And I'm no longer with this company, still do my blood work.
So I got to ask a follow-up question to that, Mina. Are you by nature very competitive?
Yeah, probably by nature. I like to think of myself as a pretty easygoing guy, but when it comes down to things, and mind you, I'm not competing with anybody, right? It's not
Right.
like I'm comparing my results with anybody else. It's just for my own health, and I like to be healthy, and I want to live a healthy life. So for me, that the reward has become more around getting healthier and tracking that number than the discount on the premium.
That makes sense. Anything you want to add, Rhonda? Because I know you use a very similar kind of carrot and stick model to this whole thing, but curious what your thoughts are on this because I do have a couple of follow-ups to that.
So I would agree with Joy Lynn. If the gamification is trying to get people to walk 10,000 steps or eat fruits and vegetables or lose weight, that is not going to be impactful. I have seen it firsthand that is you get the same 5 or 6% of the population to participate every time, and there's even some incentive to be less than honest, and
Hmm.
that is really de-incentivizing to me to even kind of put up with something like that. But I like to use the carrot and stick model, or let's incentivize behavior that's going to actually move the needle on long-term health benefit and de-incentivize behavior that's not impacting behavior and is more expensive. So, for example, let's make sure that every employee understands how to use the non-emergency services before they go to the emergency room. And if they do that, we'll remove the copay. So if, for example, they call telehealth before they go to ER and telehealth sends them to the ER, there'll be no copay. So it's still gamification, but it's incentivizing, hey, most people go to the ER actually don't need to be there. And the number one reason people go is because there's fear involved, like, oh, what's going on? I don't know what to do or what's happening. And telehealth can answer some of those questions, kind of suppress some of those fears, and then they don't need to go to the ER, or they can wait till morning and go to their regular primary care. So that's the kind of behavior I'm trying to motivate with that carrot stick model.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. And I want to pick up on one thing that you were kind of talking about, where it's a little mischievous or misleading, right? Some of these gamification things. So I think I've shared this example before, but when I worked for a company, they all gave us those really cool little Fitbit things, and this is like back in the day when they first came out, so they were around, a couple of $100. And I thought it was pretty cool because, I mean, we weren't a small company by any means, but they flipped the bill and they bought us all one of them, and they had team competition, department competition, and then also just like a global kind of competition. So three chances to win, and it was all about trying to get into better shape, how many steps you could do, all that kind of stuff. Fast forward 6 months, and granted, this competition only ran for 3 months, right? But fast forward 6 months, I was in an executive meeting, and I come to find out that was all a ploy to get us healthier, to get our health insurance premium down for this upcoming year, because apparently they had something crazy like 25% increase, and they were trying everything to get it lower, and the provider came back and said, all right, well, if you can get like 60-70% participation in some activity, and you can show that people are actually doing it on for at least 90 days, we'll give you a discount. I felt so abused and used that I was like, all right, I'm done. Don't ever ask me to go to another health fair, on-site clinic checkup, get my blood drawn. Don't ask me to do anything again because you've already lost my trust, right? And I mentioned this to Jake. They threw us a party because a pizza party of all things, a pizza party because we won the step competition for our department. So it's like it's kind
Yeah.
of like catch 22, right? It's like
The 90 days are over. Let's get back to
yeah,
regular.
yeah, crack the whip. They were pretty lenient about giving us time to go out and walk and do all this kind of stuff. I think I had more walking one-on-ones with my management as well as my employees underneath me than I have at any other company, which was great. I love walking one-on-ones. I think it's a great thing to
Yeah.
do. But again, it really put a bad taste in my mouth. And with some of the guys, some of the things that you guys are talking about, really that's what's called expectancy value theory. And if you don't know what that is, I highly recommend that you look it up because to Minya's point, you got at first it was a little bit of a motivation to get that certificate, right? But then it turned into something a little bit more for you because you wanted to see how you aligned last year compared to this year. It aligned with your health goals. And I think if we look at it from a participation standpoint, what is it that really drives people to engage? And I can't remember who talked about intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation, which I call the hotness effect or the influencer effect, right? Because that's just one and done. You get your certificate, you get your badge, great. What can I do with this? Even with your health data, I'm kind of curious, Minya. With your blood data that you're getting back, what are you doing with it? Are you just looking at the numbers over last year and it's a one and done, toss it in the trash and wait for next year? Or what are you specifically doing with that kind of data?
So I was taking it and I was running to Google. Hey, what does this mean? What foods can I eat more of or less of to improve on those numbers? And I would try to implement that in my diet. So you know what? Thinking back on it, I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I actually went vegetarian for about 5 to 6 years, slash pescatarian. I would throw in some seafoods every now and again to really adjust those numbers. And I would be so proud of myself as those numbers improve. And the years that they were like a different number would be off, I'd be like, okay, what do I need to do on this one now? And go back to doing some research, what foods are important, what kind of exercise helps with that. And I would implement it. Again, nothing that's incentivized by the company. I already got the incentive when I did the blood work. But I would actually go out and find out what I can do with those numbers. How can I influence them and move them around?
Interesting.
You know,
Go
Cody,
for
I
it.
was thinking as you were talking about feeling used and abused, I think that whether you're gamifying something or not, that it's very important to be upfront with employees about what you're doing and why. Because I think also, especially, you brought up extrinsic or intrinsic motivation. And so, gaming is all about the extrinsic, right? Getting that next reward. But if you can be clear about, hey, we are doing this because we're trying to lower our health insurance bill because studies show that, walking has great potential for this and that. And you like share information in a very accessible way. And storytelling is really good for this. People don't know what to do with data, but the storytelling is what motivates, find a way to speak to their heart, right? So,
Mhm.
oh, there's a reason for this, and it's more than just, another badge or another certificate or a pizza party, but there's an actual reason for this, that we're doing this. I think that responds, people respond to that. And if they choose to, right? If there's someone who's going to be intrinsically motivated by something like that, you're giving them the space to make that transition. Where if you're hoodwinking them into a program, they don't even have the opportunity to go, oh, well, this is why this is important. It's like, it's purely for fun.
Right. Right. All right. I gotta push back on that. How has that been with your experience working with your employees, trying to uh, provide trust and tell them like why they're doing it? What kind of participation rate do you get out of that? What kind of feedback do you
Well,
typically
I
get?
have to tell you, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It is really hard. So, like, our insurance company has a steps incentive program. And if you get 8,000 steps or more a day, they'll put $1 up to $20 a month into the HSA account. So it's free money into the HSA account. We have very low participation rates in it. But, and so it is very hard. But when we have done like, the losing weight at the end of the year, or different contests like that, it's gone nowhere. And so trying to make sure they understand why you need to do that. But I think one thing that we haven't done a good job at, which at least when your company was doing the walking thing, even though you didn't know why, right? They gave you the space and time to do that. So part of it is, maybe if we're like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, anybody who wants to can come out, on a walk around the building and create that culture to support what you're trying to do. I was just listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about Ozempic and other drugs that are going on, and how in many parts of our culture we are, or within our government, right, where there's the Maha movement and different things trying to encourage healthy eating. Yet on the flip side, and there's a lot of focus on like removing dyes or this or that, which not a bad thing, but what's really going to make the difference for people? Having access to whole foods, right? And, and so as a company, are we just talking the talk and saying, do this, or are we providing the support and the opportunities? And that's one thing that we haven't done very well, is providing that support and opportunities to like encourage, hey, go out and walk, get your $20 a month into your HSA account. And so we need to be better at that. So yeah, you can push back. I'm not perfect, but I also know.
No, I'm just curious on that. I'm
Yeah.
really curious.
It is hard. And there's a book I highly suggest people read, and I think about this a lot as I'm trying to encourage people. It's called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. Cody's nodding his head. So it's about how to make change, right? And it's part of it is about how you have to speak to the emotional self of a person and not just the rational self. And so, I think that's part of what gamification is trying to do, right? Engage that emotional self. But at some point, people really have to understand this is why it's good for me. That's why it works so well for Mina, because he wants to be healthy. Getting that information now is like, ooh, how am I doing for this next year? Can I make these numbers even better the next year? Right. And so he's got that intrinsic.
Yeah.
I wonder, sorry, Cody, but I do wonder in your case, if a more transparent communication would have driven a different result. Like, hey, you can get healthy, but also guess what? We're all doing this because it's going to drive costs down. And if it's down for us, it's down for you. So it's a win-win situation. So if you're into getting healthier and you do see the benefits in getting your 10, 20, whatever, 8,000 steps you said, great. But if not, and you do it, you're going to see lower costs. Who doesn't want to save money? Do you think that would have kind of changed your outlook on it?
He's thinking about it.
I think it could. It could potentially.
And I know it's not easy, right? To communicate that with, like, say it's a 5,000 person company. It's not an easy task, but people understand. And then you feel even more like a group. And hey, this is up to us as a group. And I think it's even better for the culture. We're working together on this.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I can also see like a lot of people really don't get engaged until it affects them, right? It's like I don't need to go to the dentist until I have a root canal. There's those type of people that are out there, and then there's the other people that go faithfully every 6 months on the dot, right? So with that kind of framework, I guess you could say, if from a design standpoint, when I'm designing things from a psychological thing for online users, I'm thinking, okay, there's three things that need to align. We'll call it the sun, the moon, and the stars. When those things all align, great things happen, right? So if you look at it, for somebody to actually build that intrinsic motivation, it requires motivation, it requires a trigger, and it requires ability. And Joyland, you mentioned that, right? The capability or the ability to take action, right? So for
Mhm.
me, it's like, hey, everybody that's on this call, let's go run a 5K. Some of you, Mina would probably say, heck yeah, let's go do it. I'd probably be on the other end of saying, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'll see you guys at the finish line at the pizza party, right? Um, but I think that's kind of, there's different we call them like flow states. There's different theories. There's different models to try to kind of put it on an XY axis of motivation versus ability, anxiety versus like boredom. There's a lot of different things that we look at and we evaluate. And I think with that kind of being said, Rhonda, you've had some we've had some great discussions about the good old boys. I think we've all ran into these type of people that are like I grew up on a ranch, so I'm just thinking of in my mind, I'm thinking of the old time cowboy that doesn't want to go to the doctor, doesn't want to participate in any group activity. They'd rather be out on the range on their horse, herding cattle rather than helping move the needle so that everybody benefits from it. Rhonda, you've had some good success with some of those good old cowboys, we'll call them. Do you mind sharing an experience that you had with one of them?
With one of the good old boys.
Yep.
So the wellness program that I initially put in place 10 years ago has evolved quite a bit, but I learned really quick that a blanket peanut butter kind of approach across the whole company doesn't work well. And that we were going to have more traction in the carrot stick model if we were working one-on-one and identifying what matters to the individual that I'm speaking with. Not what's good for the company, what can we do as a whole group, but what is going to move the needle for this person. And so I met with many a good old boy and I got him into my office because we had gamified, if you participate in this one-on-one quarterly meeting with Well Trio, then you get a discount on your insurance premium. So I got him in the door by making that a pretty decent carrot. And then the stick was uh, really not as painful as they thought it would be. It was working against what their own desires are. So, what can we do for you to help move that needle for you? Not what is going to. Yeah, and the objectives that we came up with for the individual were as unique as that individual. Rarely was it 10,000 steps or weight loss. In fact, I refuse to let that be an objective for somebody because I don't want them to work super hard on a number that's not necessarily the goal. And
Yeah.
we can go into that. But so a good old boy, there was somebody who came in every quarter but didn't want to be there. We came up with really unique objectives for that individual that they could get behind, that was what they were motivated by. There was one gentleman I think of who refused to do blood work. Like, I don't want to know. If I found something, I wouldn't do anything about it. Like, they just refused to do it. But I did request that they have a regular primary care checkup once a year. And so that was part of their objective. When they met that objective, they could earn the premium rebate and not have the healthcare premium. So they go to the doctor, and then the doctor would say, hey, let's do a check. Let's do some blood work. And they go, nope, not going to do blood work. Well, every quarter I was meeting with this individual who they smoked, they drank a lot. They had done the same career their whole life, and they were healthy. Nothing was going to change that. I can't change their mind. I can't change their behavior. And they let me know that every time I met with them. But after like year 2, I said, let's just, of all the blood work, can we just do this one test? Just because there was some annual screening stuff that you should just do. And one of them was a PSA test. And he was in his 70s. I'm like, look, everyone's PSA is going to increase, but it's so treatable. It's not something you want to die of. so treatable. Anyway, we did this PSA test. He actually had stage 4 prostate cancer.
Oh, wow.
And that was a very difficult conversation. He also planned to work until he was 80, but all he ever wanted to do was retire to Montana and fish. But because we had done that test, he actually retired, moved to Montana, and to this day is still fishing. He refused treatment, but he got to go live his life. And maybe that backing out of the rat race, going to what he actually wanted to do the rest of his life, and jumping into that 10 years earlier than he would have, he actually had quality of life that he actually had been looking forward to his whole life, but hadn't done that jump because he had already decided he was going to look till he was 80. So carrot and stick, did it work there? I don't know, but I certainly got through to him in a way that nobody else had, and he ultimately got to live his dream, which he would have put off not knowing that he needed to do something different.
Yeah, and I love how you brought that up about meeting him where he's at, right? And I think that that's very important because as part of the uh, expectancy value theory, we talked about making sure that people are setting pretty specific goals for themselves, but also being able to feel like they can accomplish those goals. So I liked how you said it wasn't built around taking so many steps or this or that. You did put out an ultimatum, right, of meeting with you or getting a specific thing, but I think that the real connector for that person to do it was interaction, human interaction, right? And I think that that's where a lot of a lot of this gamification has tried to implement elements of human connection with like social proof or leaderboards or things like that, but that ends up like doing a lot of times the reverse of what you're trying to accomplish, because it shames people. It makes them feel like, oh my gosh, I just missed a day. I don't know if you guys have ever done Duolingo with your kids or
Oh,
anything. Oh my gosh, I had to delete that app. It was driving me absolutely crazy. I like the concept of it, but how they're going about it was completely off, right? The leaderboards
right.
threatening me with things of losing my streak with my kid. I mean, oh my gosh, I've got more to do in my life than just learn a language. Um, so I'm kind of curious, like, do you guys have any other similar situations where human connection has basically trumped gamification?
Well, and I want to say that, I think what Rhonda's doing is not gamification.
Oh, 100%.
And that's why it's so effective, right? And because she is taking the time to get to meet with someone one-on-one. And yes, there is an incentive for them to come in, but it's not the gamification. It's not about, oh, this is come meet with Rhonda and it's going to be so much fun,
Yeah.
You've come in and you haven't, and and that's part of the gamification, right? And I think that I don't, and there's different ways to do gamification. And I think there's a point for it. But when you're talking about changing behavior, it's got to be meeting with someone one-on-one or in small groups because, some of those games turn me off and I'm walking away. And like I said, I'm a very competitive person, but I'm like, this is not worth my time.
I couldn't
But
tell.
But when you're meeting with someone one-on-one and getting to know them and what's important to them, that's when you can help come up with a plan that speaks to them emotionally, right? That, okay, this is worth it. And yeah, sometimes you might be dragging them along a little bit. And I think my doctor feels that way with a few things. She's like, okay, I can only ask you to get one screening a year, not two. But and so there is that little dragging along, but it's that one-on-one, the human connection, right? Where Rhonda's telling the story. This is why this is important to you. Let me help remove the obstacles to what you need to be doing. And that and I mean, I could be wrong, but typically when I see gamification done, it's like, here's this new program that we're doing. Download this app, follow us here. And it's not that individual one-on-one where, okay, this is Rhonda, this is what she needs, this is Mina, this is what he needs, this is what Cody needs. It's like, okay, you're all doing this. And whoever does it the best is the winner.
Yeah.
I think the end goal of gamification is not so much. It starts, and I guess that goes back to like my same point is if it starts out with that external reward, but I think it's more about creating the habit. Just like you said, kind of holding their hand, walking them through this, and next thing you know, they're kind of just doing it on their own. And
But see, that's my point, Mina. I don't think it's effective at that. I think there are one-offs where it does make that transition, but I don't think that the fun gamification is good at, I think more often than not, it's, okay, the game's over, I'm done. I think it's very rare that you have your outcome, that something else has to happen to take you to develop that habit. It's not just, when I was growing up, you do it for 3 weeks and you've developed a new habit. That's been blown out of the water, right? That's not true. And so it's, you had whatever that intrinsic, that internal switch that you're like, aha, this is important.
mm-hmm.
And that can happen in gamification. And I think that's the goal of gamification, but I don't think it's effective.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever gonna get 100% of people.
Are you going to get
like,
50%?
Yeah, that's
Lower.
the goal is to it's
lower.
Like
Yeah,
30?
it's much lower.
It is. It's a lot lower. If you're able to get a population of around like 10 to 30%, you're rocking. You're really
You're
rocking.
really rocking.
But
Yeah.
that's 30% you didn't have before. Using a
Right.
blanket approach, so maybe it's a balance. Like, okay, now I got the 30%. Now, how can I approach this from a more personalized approach for the remaining 70%, where I don't
Well,
have
let
to
me
do it
ask-
for the full 100%?
Let me
And-
ask
and-
you this. Is that 10 to 30% of
Of your population.
your population who participate or that make a transition?
Across
Because you're not going to have 100% participation. And then from the people that participate, is it you get 10 to 30%? What's the 10 to 30%?
the 10 to 30% is so if you take your company, Joylyn, that would be 100%, right? For
Right.
full company. We're typically going to get about 10 to 30%
Of
participation,
in
right?
the game.
in the whatever the program is,
Right.
right? To Mina's point, I think that a lot of those people that are going to be in that 10 to 30% are the ones that are cautious about their health. They want to make change. They are motivated. They are triggered. Those are the people that you don't really need to care about per se. It's the 70% that you need to be concerned about because they're your high cost claimant type of people. They're the ones that are driving up your premiums every year. They're the ones that don't really they take convenience over cost. They fall into these different categories, and it's to what Rhonda was just talking about a second ago, like having this good old boy come in, and had he not been pre-screened for that blood work, who knows where he could have been? Probably in a 6 foot box somewhere right now, rather than being out on God's green earth fishing, which Montana has some of the best fishing, by the way. I think that's kind of where where you were going with this, Mina, was trying to figure out how. Okay, we got we got the train rolling down the track, but now how do we customize this to meet the other 70%? And I think this is a fault of a lot of the apps and services that are out there, is that they are so programmed into that one thing that it's hard for them to add different changes to be able to specialize in certain things. Now that AI is coming into things, I'm starting to see more customized goals and motivation that way. But for the most part, it's only as good as the people that program it and the amount of data that is behind it to drive it. Because otherwise, it's just going to go off of that default setting and everybody's going to have that same experience, right? Or that same goal or that same output. But not everybody's going to resonate with it. So, um, uh, does that kind of change your mind a little bit? I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to say, does that kind of feed your thought process a little bit more on that?
Um, I think I still think you're saving yourself a lot of work by using the blanket approach. But you make a great point, especially when you bring up the Cowboys. This guy was never gonna get even start, right? But imagine if you had to do away with some gamification or all of the gamification and sit down one on one with 100% of your population. You just narrowed it down to just 70%. Gave you a lot more of your time back to focus on them and get that one on one time with them. So I think now I think there's like a good balance because I'm starting to think that maybe I am a little bit more competitive and I do wanna, and not everybody's like that. But how do you then sit down with those other 70% individually and speak their language and find out what motivates them?
Yeah. How do you do that, Rhonda? Your group, your company works primarily with the individual employees on a one-on-one basis, working with like Joylyn and working with Mina that designs the plans. How do you work with the employees? How do you drive that motivation?
So I've got to work with the Joylyn and the Mina to create the program that will drive them into my office. So there needs to be a pretty typically financial incentive to meet with Welltrio initially. I say initially because once I've met with, or one of my team has met with the employee, all of their fears of what it is, they're going to make me peel carrots and slice apples. They're going to make me walk 10,000 steps a day. They're going to make me lose weight. I don't want to do any of that. Once they actually cross the threshold and find out, hey, we're actually here to support you and what goals are going to help you. And we're going to find out what that is from you. And but that we're going to use that information to create an objective specific to the individual that they can then work on and continue to earn those premium credits. So we establish trust very quickly, and then we maintain that trust over time, continuing to build it each time we meet, helping them in whatever way they are comfortable to create the objective that's going to move their health and actually create that lasting change, which we're all trying to accomplish. And sometimes gamifying it for the individual because they are somebody like Mina who's highly motivated. I used often and still use to this day somebody who's a gamer. How can I get them out of their gaming chair into the real world and participating with other people and doing something else? I use games like Pokemon Go, where they have to be moving in order to continue to play the game. So that Pokemon Go is it's a cool game if like for kids or perpetual gamers to get people outside working in groups to accomplish tasks. They need to walk their eggs so they can hatch them. Like there's just some cool things, but a lot of people wouldn't. It's not going to motivate everyone. So basically, there's no one size fits all approach. You've got to establish trust and then create the objective that is right for the individual to help them move their own needle towards a better health. That's the ultimate goal. And the kind of the good old boy, I had a lot of success with those kinds of people specifically because they were kind of the ones who liked to go to their person or like old school. They had a person who knew accounting. They had a person who knew law. They certainly did not go to social media to get their questions answered or ChatGPT. So I became their person for those questions, and then that trust just built. more, and then my words had more influence in helping them decide what they wanted to do. But it was that trust and the consistency that pulled them back in every quarter to my office.
I love that. So, Mina, I gotta ask. We're gonna kind of role play here. How would you convince Joy Lynn and her company? Joy Lynn, feel free to push back on this.
Oh, I
But
will.
how have you ever used an app that you love to include into your benefits plans that you provide to your clients? And if so, how would you sell Joy Lynn on it, who is apparently so opposed to gamification? Not 100%. We'll just say 90% opposed to gamification. How would you sell her on this, knowing that it is a vital key piece of service or product to enhance or optimize the plan that you've built?
Yeah, so not so much an app, more of it was just like a regular website that you can click in through your benefits portal to go out and set up your profile and pick the thing that works for you. So I think to that point, it's like let's not just say just the one thing. Let's include a bunch of different things that are going to speak to different people. Some people don't want to walk. Some people are more concerned with just saving money. Some people want to do group sports. So we're going to include a bunch of different things and let the person decide on what makes most sense for them. We're not going to promise 100% participation, but we are going to promise some better habits, more savings down the line, but you've got to be in it for the long haul and just track the data. The vital part is going to be communicating and leaving that to your benefits consultant to communicate that to your employees. So that way they're aware of what's there and kind of takes one more thing off your plate. You're going to have those other guys that you're going to want to work with on a one-on-one basis. But if we can roll this out in a way that is fun, beneficial to your employees, beneficial to the company's bottom line, creates a better culture, and depending on the demographics of your company too. If you have like a younger company that are bound to be a little bit more competitive, maybe we do set up some of those um, inter-department competitions, or maybe it's just the annual blood work and you get your discount on your premium. But there's going to be something for everybody. Again, you're not going to get 100% of them, but at least it takes that 10 to 30% off your plate, and we just have to track it. We do the work, communicate it out, make it easy. You don't have to download a whole other app because there is an app to download for everything now. But when you enroll in your benefits, it's going to be right there. You pick the thing that works for you, and we will nudge you once a quarter to kind of show you how easy it is to get enrolled and get started and highlight different programs that are available. And again, you're going to have those other 70, but at least we freed up your time for 10 to 30% of them.
Are you sold, Joy Lynn?
I don't know.
What?
I was thinking about that as he was talking, and I mean, I'm much older than I look. I don't know how old I look online, but I mean, I remember being excited when fax machines came. So, that tells you something. But like, a few years ago when I downloaded Venmo, it's like, I don't know why anybody would have it on a public setting. I don't want people to see that I'm paying, Mina some money or Rhonda some money. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. So there's a part of me that, even though I'm very competitive, there's certain things that I'm like, that's nobody else's business. And so, I've got my old person mindset that I've got to work through. And so, I've got my own quirks. So, if Rhonda were to sit down with me, she'd have to coax me through my own things. But
Do we have to get out the red couch and have a
yeah.
therapy
And
session
the
here?
thing is, I mean, I've done some of these things, and let me back up. While I'm not about gamification of a lot of these things, I do think that there's a place where playing games together can build a spirit of cooperation or team building, and and so there is a place for games that may be outside of, I'm going to change the behavior of my people here, but by working together, or maybe it's department against department, and kind of where it can be team building and bring another aspect to it, where now maybe I care about somebody I didn't care. That sounds bad, that I didn't care about before. But I'm now a partner with them, right?
Right.
It's like they had my back in this game, and I'm going to have their back out on the floor. And when they share with me, that, hey, I was just in Rhonda's office and she's trying to encourage me to go to the doctor once a year. I'm like, I go to the doctor once a year and it's a really good experience for me. I don't know. Now I'm
Yeah.
just talking, but
No, that makes sense. And I think you're right. I think it doesn't always have to be at the individual level of gamification. It can definitely be at the team building, because I mean that's what defines your guys' culture, right? Of the company. That's why you draw people in, because they want to be part of that culture. Uh, one thing that you did say that I am curious about is uh, when it comes to the individual employee. I mean, when you got Minya who's selling you something that's included into your benefits package, the employees are going to either take it or they're going to leave it based upon your motivation around it, right?
yeah,
So to say.
how
So,
someone in a management level, right, sells something, your attitude towards it makes a big difference, and that
yeah.
is definitely true. If I were to, like, what, there's this app or this website you can do with our benefits, and I'm not going to do it, but if you want to do it, go for it. You might have 1% adoption, but if I'm up there, you know what, there's this app or this website you can do, and there's so many different options and it looks so fun, let's try to get on it in the next 24 hours, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
So
and I
makes it.
think the idea is to not say like, hey, for example, for those that want to enroll or participate in the 10K steps challenge, is to not put up a board and say, hey, you guys lost because John only took
Yeah,
4 steps today.
and ate
It's
three
like,
donuts.
and we're tracking all of that. And we're gonna name you one by one. It's more to say the team that won. It's as a team. We are not including any specific names. It's the team that won was, it's the XYZ team, and this team came real close, and now they're looking at each other like, hey, we're gonna get them next time, or hey, we did this, high fives all around. And it's not something that's mandatory for anybody to participate in, but those that do participate together, I just think how cool it would be for them to look at each other, not knowing who is really driving. You're gonna have your 80-20 rule, that 20% that are really driving the results. But they're gonna look at each other as all winners. We did this together. Let's get it again next quarter, next month. But not to at all single anybody out, but also to not make it mandatory. And I also 100% agree that the department head has to be, even if they have to take it till they make it, to say,
mhm,
I'm on. Results are not going to be on there. It's not going to show that they didn't take a single step, but to create some excitement around it, or even if they just pick the one that they do enjoy and like, and they say, I'm on it, I'm excited to be on it. It creates some, they're the leader, right? They're going to take the first
right.
steps and they're going to be followed.
I think there's a lot of power in the leader setting the stage and having buy-in, but I actually think there's more power in your peers. So that same experience where the peer goes back and talks to their peer and deciding what to do. I saw that happen so many times where I'd meet with someone and my goal with they want to just move, do something. And I give them a little video clip on a 3-minute workout. And I'd suggest that they set their timer at their desk and every 2 hours just stand up and do this stupid little 3-minute workout. And I said, get your, say it's time and get everybody in your group, everyone in IT or whatever to do it. And then I would go out on the floor and see everybody standing up doing this 3-minute workout because one person went back and said, hey, Rhonda's making me do this thing. You want to do it with me? That was much more powerful than, and I saw culture change. So people were really concerned. This particular company that I piloted this program with had about 200 employees, and food was part of the culture. They had birthday things. Whenever there was a birthday, somebody brought in a cake. They had big week-long celebrations in the community, and each day of the week had a different food theme. And there was this big concern that the nurse on site is going to take away all their good things. Like, I'm not taking anybody's food away. But what I found is that over time, people started coming to me and said, "Hey, what kind of things can I bring to this potluck that would be more friendly with the kind of to support what I'm trying to do, outside of work?" And so I give suggestions, and then there was like the healthy food and then the typical food, and then we started making healthy versions of the typical food that they all were, and then kind of moved out so that it was just all healthy food. Now this happened over 10 years, but the entire culture shifted, which was really fun to see. And that did not come from management down or somebody telling them they had to do. It came from peer to peer and wanting to do something better and getting your peers to do it with you.
Yeah.
No, I love that. You know, part of that three-legged monster that I was talking about, motivation, trigger, and ability, right? One of the biggest things to build intrinsic motivation, which is, comes from the self-determination theory, is all about feedback, right? I'm getting feedback from my peers. I'm getting feedback from an app. I'm getting feedback from all this kind of stuff because if you look at your own habits of if you download an app, if you download a game, if you try to implement something else in your routine, yeah, you're willing to try it, but then your subconscious brain starts kicking in and you start doing a compare and assess of like, is this helping me reach my goal, right? To Minya's point. Uh, am I getting better on my numbers on my blood screening? Am I meeting my step goals? Am I doing this or that? Because if it's not helping you achieve your goal, we have a tendency to just automatically delete the app, not log in again, right? It's the same way with like our emails. You sign up to get that 10% off at this restaurant or that department store, and then after you do it, then they start bombarding you with all this like extra email communication that's way over the board. What do you automatically do? You're just like, I'm done. I didn't like it. It wasn't great, so I'm just automatically going to delete it. And I think to your point, Rhonda, even just having somebody to communicate with, because in my mind, I've been doing this long enough, the gamification is really just a form of communication, right? It's how are you doing? How are you progressing towards your goals? And that's great from an electronic data standpoint, but nothing compares to that human interaction of what you just talked about, right? Because it is what drives us. It's the thing that makes us sign up for a gym membership on January 1st. And if we've got that wife or that spouse that's willing to keep pushing us to go to the gym every week, then it's worth it, right? Then we start forming those habits. And so that was an interesting take there. So I've got one last question. We're almost out of time. But Minya, I know you said you had tons of questions. Do you want to throw a question out before I ask my last one?
Yeah, I think one thing that actually came up after we started talking is how do you, when you take away the blanket approach, how do you make the time to reach each person in your company? And I'm not sure how many people are in your company. For example, Joy, like if you have 500 or 5,000, it's going to be a different approach. How do you determine that approach and who gets the first time or the first slot on your calendar versus another, and but making sure that you're reaching everybody? Is it via like one-on-one, or is it via like, okay, I'm gonna one department at a time? What's worked best for you?
Are you asking me or Rhonda?
Both, because it sounds like you both kind of work directly with the individuals.
Right. And see, and so I'm the HR director at my company. And then Rhonda, she's her company, they contract with the company to come in and work one-on-one with the employees. And so,
Mhm.
that's what they do. So for me, now I'm fortunate because I'm with a smaller company. We have about 81 employees. Most of us are here in the state of Utah, but we have about 20 in Georgia. And so, that brings in its own little tricky things. And so a lot of times I kind of start with, I throw something out there company wide, right? New program. There's this education, I don't know, it's open enrollment time or something. And then, so I'll put it out there. And, I'm a department of like 1.25. So it's me. If you're in a larger company, you're going to have more people to kind of help you. Where programs start to become more effective is if my managers are like on board and are little spies for me in a good way, right? Where I know that this person is struggling or this person has a question. And so it's when I can be one-on-one with somebody. I try to do small group meetings, but even in small meetings, there are people who just will not ask questions, right? And one of the things that I have found, and Rhonda's probably found this over and over again, is that until people understand why it's important to them, it goes in one eyeball and out the other, or one ear and out the other, right? It's not until they need something. And I can't tell you how many times, like, hey, we've got this wonderful resource for you, and we've had the resource for 5 years, and I take every opportunity I can to tell you. And then a manager will tell me, this person is struggling with something. I'm like, oh, we've got this great resource. I'll pull them in, I'll talk to them about it, and they're like, this is amazing. Why don't you tell people? And it's really hard, and I try to be, make things super clear. And so those one-on-ones do make a difference, but it is hard because you can't just meet one-on-one with every, even in a company of 80, right? It could still take a couple weeks to make it through everybody. In the meanwhile, I have the rest of my job. So it is hard. And so if you can have, people who are closer to employees, whether it's a manager or a peer, and like, oh, you're having this issue, Joylyn can help you. Joylyn knows about something. Go talk to Joylyn. She's nice. She'll help you. And so kind of having people that can be, like I said, your little spies and target you to the people. But it's hard, and I haven't perfected it by any means. I still need lots of help.
You have to have your internal champions, and also like you're a lot more to talk to somebody if you refer to them. So you have to have those champions that are inside spreading the word on your behalf.
Yeah. It was great. I had one woman, when she doesn't work here anymore, but she was a master at using telehealth. And, it saved so much in time, so much in money. So when people would say something about telehealth, I'm like, go talk to Carol, and Carol's like, oh, let me tell you all about it. And she's all excited. And that was also really nice because it wasn't the HR lady telling me what I needed to do, right? It was going to what Rhonda said earlier. It's a peer sharing the experience they had. And this is how it's made my life easier, then it's like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, I'll have to do that. So that makes, so the champions don't necessarily have to be a manager, but, someone who understands and gets excited and can help people understand this is why it's important to you individually.
Yep. Rhonda, anything you want to add to that?
Oh, I agree. And unless it's your full-time job, I don't know how you would meet with everybody. It is my full-time job. So, and I hire coaches or nurses, and they can meet with 120 to 160 people a month. And then, so they can cover 400 to 500 employees, and they make sure that they meet with everyone every quarter. And then they start over again. So whoever they met with first, January 1st, they're going to meet with again on April 1st. And it's just this rolling quarter. So if in that first group, they didn't meet until March 30th, then they're going to not meet for another 3 months. But everyone's covered in that 30-day in that quarter, and everyone's seen 4 times a year at minimum.
Mm-hmm. You say it becomes a lot more of a logistics game at that point and scheduling it out.
It's really not hard. It's during the meeting, you're scheduling the next one 3 months out, and during holidays, like Christmas time, there's this weird break where you have no meetings periodically, but it just becomes very routine. The employees are meeting with the same coach every time, not with a bank of coaches or a different coach, but with the same coach every time. So they have that development of relationship, because that's really where you see traction. And then Joylyn, to your point, it's super powerful when somebody goes back, sits down at their desk and go, wow, that was actually really cool. And I'm looking forward to XYZ, or they start to make changes that are positive, and people go, what are you doing? Oh, the nurse is helping me with this and that. And then they're coming and going, hey, I heard you could do this. And like, yeah, we can do whatever you'd like, because this is an individual program. So
super insightful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you just said, Rhonda. I've had a lot of experience building a lot of different online communities across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And one of the key metrics that I give to business owners to tell how healthy their online community is if somebody comes in and poses a question, does the moderators get to it first, or do community members come in and answer the question? And if you've got community members coming in and answering the questions before the moderators can even get in there, you've got a very healthy community, one that is thriving off of questions. And when people feel comfortable in their environment, they're going to ask more in-depth questions rather than surface questions of like, hey, what's the telehealth link again? Type of thing. They're going to be like, well, what's your experience working with telehealth? Did they just refer you to ER or Instacare? Was it a waste of time and money, kind of thing? And I think that this is the kind of environment I think Joylyn and Rhonda, you guys are definitely trying to create with what you guys are creating. So thank you so much for sharing that. Just for the interest of time, I'll forego my last question, but I want to give you guys each 30 seconds to kind of do a quick little outro. Minya, we'll go through and we'll just let the ladies go first again, if you don't mind. But Joylyn, if you want to just kind of kick us off and do a quick little outro, that would be great.
Okay. And I never know what to say, but
the
I don't
HR
know.
queen of Utah in Heber City, Utah.
So, it's like, I will say this. There is so much out there to learn that every day I'm just amazed at what I have to learn. And I learn from my employees. I learn from people like you. I learn from my family. And I think it's really important to always be keeping that open mind. So anyway, if somebody wants to look me up on LinkedIn, Joylyn Jepson at Miro Industries, I'm really, really slow at responding, so be patient.
All good. Rhonda, over to you.
So Rhonda with Well Trio, you can also look me up on LinkedIn. I'm sure Cody will respond real quick. I'm not good at responding either, Joylyn. Happy to be part of this panel. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for being here as always. And Minya, how was it? You came in blind, didn't know what to expect. What'd you think?
I thought it was a great discussion. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm always humbled to be reminded that it's so many different walks of life, and that it's never a one size fits all. So having these conversations and seeing different approaches to how to address a big population of people, uh, always insightful, and definitely I might have taken one step closer to you guys' point of view. That now I think there's a little bit of a more balanced approach. So thank you both for sharing. And thanks, Cody, for inviting me. It's been great.
Yeah, no problem. Open invitation to you and Joylyn. Anytime you guys want to join, just ping me. We will get you up on the panel for sure. And thanks to everybody that's tuning in live or during the recording. We appreciate your ongoing support. As you know, this podcast is all about an investigative podcast behind what is actually going into your premium dollars every single month. And we get into the weeds quite a bit, like we did today. I think we only got through a handful of my questions that I had. So we may have to do another follow-up down the road on this one, and we'll be sure to invite our panelists back. But other than that, thanks everybody. Tune in next Wednesday for 2 weeks from today for the next roundtable discussion at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And until then, keep pushing the narrative of the status quo of healthcare, and let's fix this baby already. All right. Have a good one, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.